If there was a Mount Rushmore of comfort food, pot roast is definitely on there. But most homemade pot roast is lacking a few key things to truly make it elite. Today, I'm giving you guys all the secrets, pro tips, restaurant quality tips to take your pot roast to the next level. I'm talking texture, tenderness, juicy, and flavorful. Meet me in the kitchen, let's make it happen. All right, people, first things first, let's talk about chuck roast. That's what you're getting when you hear the word pot roast. Essentially, it's a chuck roast, right? So you want one that's relatively uniform in size and shape. This one is a little bit off, but it's the best we could find at the grocery store. You want to make sure that there's not one end that's thick and one end that's thin. You really want this thing to cook evenly when it's time to cook. First things first though, we're gonna season this heavily with kosher salt. This is a 4-pound chuck roast. We got it from the local Kroger here. It's got some nice white lines of fat, little striations, marbling. That's gonna, ensure that we have a nice juicy product here. That fat is gonna render, making the pot roast nice and flavorful and moist. One other thing we're gonna do for flavor today is what's called a salt or dry brine. So we're gonna add quite a bit of salt to this, about a half a teaspoon per pound. And then we're gonna put it in the refrigerator overnight. That's gonna allow the salt to really penetrate the meat. You have a really hefty, 4-pound roast here. So you wanna be able to really season it all the way through. So we're gonna dry brine this, put it in the fridge, 12 to 24 hours, right before we sear it. That's gonna dry out the exterior, which is gonna help you get a great crust. The crust is gonna add texture and flavor, and it's gonna be more visually appealing that way as well. If you had a lot of pot roast, from home cooks, a lot of times you just sear it and throw it right in the crock pot. Those are delicious too, but a lot of times they just come out a little soggy and mushy. And today we're gonna show you guys how to do this at an expert level. All right, guys, we're keeping it very classic on the flavor profile here. We're using a mirepoix, which is a combination of carrots, onions, and celery. We're also gonna throw in some garlic as well because garlic is great in pot roast. We're gonna prep these carrots by just chopping off the root end and the tip. We're gonna peel the carrot skin off because it's, a little dirty and gross, but that's totally up to you. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. We're gonna peel those carrots. We're gonna quarter our onions, leave our garlic head whole basically. Just gonna chop the ends off like this to expose the garlic. That way the flavors can release, a little bit more easily. And that's really it, guys. We're gonna cut it into bite-sized pieces, something that you can fit on the fork. Got my little trash bowl here to help with cleanup, keeping it nice and efficient. Got my oven preheated to 325 degrees, which in my opinion is the perfect temperature to braise this roast. You'd also do this in an Instapot pressure cooker. You could do all of these steps and then throw it in a slow cooker if you want to while you go to work and then come home and dinner is done. And this episode is sponsored by ZocDoc. Now, this is something I've used a million times in my lifetime. Honestly, at one point in my life, I had a real issue with health anxiety. Have you ever been laying in bed at night, Googling some random symptom, and suddenly you're convinced something is very wrong? I've definitely been there more times than I'm happy to admit. And usually what stops me from actually booking a doctor's appointment is the hassle, calling the office, being put on hold, or being told they can't see me for weeks. That's why I like using ZocDoc. It's a free app and website that lets you find and book in-network doctors who actually fit you. Doctors who listen, understand, and most importantly, take you seriously. You can search by specialty or symptom, whether that's primary care, dermatology, dentistry, eye care, or hundreds more. And you can see real patient reviews, real-time availability, and book instantly. No phone calls, no waiting. I personally like being able to choose a doctor based on reviews and availability instead of just taking whoever's next. Appointments through ZocDoc usually happen super fast, often within 24 to 72 hours, sometimes even same day. So if you've been putting off taking care of yourself, don't. Go to ZocDoc.com/makeithappen and book a doctor who will listen, understand, and support you. That's ZocDoc.com/makeithappen. Quick reminder, guys, that you can find this recipe and all of my recipes at MrMakeItHappen.com. All right, guys, after that salt brine, we're gonna add a little AP seasoning to the pot roast, which is just salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder, a couple other spices, but you can use whatever you like. Salt and pepper will get the job done. We're gonna add some avocado oil to our skillet and get it smoking hot. Our goal right now is to lock in the most perfect crust and sear on this roast. So always lay the protein away from you and then really press down firmly You want to make maximum surface area contact with that roast and the skillet. If you have a heavy Dutch oven or a cast iron skillet, you can place it on top of here or one of those burger presses just to add a little weight to make sure that it stays, you know, making contact with the skillet. We're really going to let this maybe 4 or 5 minutes. You want a real hard sear. That texture is going to last through the braising process. It's going to add nice color and it's going to add some flavor as well. Once you've seared your pot roast perfectly, we're gonna go ahead and add in these veggies. I'm gonna add in that garlic, our mirepoix, onion, celery, carrots. Let them get started toasting a bit. Kind of break up these onions a little bit with the back of your spatula, or try to. We're gonna give this a good mix over medium heat. I turn the heat down. Get some of that fond up off the bottom of the pot. Then we're gonna start to add in our other ingredients. We're gonna add tomato paste, traditional French flavors there for pot roast. It's gonna add some depth of flavor, some good color, and it's gonna help the consistency of our gravy once this is all finished. We're also gonna add some fresh herbs, the kind you cook with, not the kind that cooked you. Rosemary, thyme, bay leaves. Got some Dijon mustard. We're gonna deglaze this with some dry red wine. Add in our beef base and beef stock. Taste this before you add the pot roast back in there, because this is your time to add the flavor. You want this to be as flavorful as possible because you're gonna braise this big chunk of meat in this braising liquid for 3.5 to 4 hours. If the braising liquid doesn't taste good, your final product's not gonna taste good. All right, so once we get all our ingredients in there, we're gonna toast that tomato paste, the Dijon mustard. We add a little beef base, low sodium, just to add some, you know, depth of flavor to the beef flavor in general. Season it up with a little AP seasoning, deglaze with our dry red wine. Let that simmer for a few minutes to cook off the alcohol. And then it's time to go in with our beef stock. About 6 cups in total. Depending on the size of your roast, really. If you got a smaller roast, you could probably get away with 4 cups. I'm gonna go ahead and bring this to a boil, season to taste, add the roast back in, cover it with the lid, into the oven at 325 for 3.5 to 4 hours, or until the roast is fork tender. Quick reminder, guys, you can find this recipe and all of my recipes at MrMakeItHappen.com. All right, guys, what pairs better with pot roast than mashed potatoes? We're going in with 2 tablespoons of Kerrygold grass-fed butter, my favorite. Not just because I'm Irish. We're gonna get that melted. Then I'm gonna go in with my heavy cream, some garlic, some fresh thyme, the seasoning of your choice. I'm using AP. You can add a little chicken bouillon if you wanna spice it up a little bit. Season it with whatever you like. Fresh herbs, garlic, butter, cream, salt, pepper. That's all you need for some phenomenal potatoes. We got russet potatoes. We're gonna boil them into their fork tender in some salted water or chicken broth. And then we're gonna mash them in this pot. That's gonna pair with our perfectly tender and flavorful pot roast that we're serving up today. Quick reminder, guys, that this recipe and all of my recipes can be found at MrMakeItHappen.com. Got the butter in there. Time to add in the heavy cream. One of the keys to a good mashed potato is to warm your butter and cream mixture before you start to cook your potatoes. So that's what we're doing now. I'm gonna get the thyme in there, allow that to kind of steep a little bit, almost like a tea. Gonna add some garlic too. Season to taste, and this is what we're gonna pour into our potatoes as we mash them. All right, guys, after about 3.5 to 4 hours, our pot roast is absolutely perfect. Falling apart tender, still juicy, great color. Now it's time to strain off the liquid that it braised in to make our gravy. We're gonna bring that up to a boil, skim off a little bit of that fat. You can use a paper towel or a fat skimmer. Get this up nice and hot, and then we're gonna add in our cornstarch slurry. Let's make sure the cornstarch ain't sticking to the bottom. And then once it comes up to a boil, add in that cornstarch slurry. This will automatically thicken this up and turn that braising liquid into a flavorful gravy. You can finish it with a little salt and pepper if it needs it, but most of the time it doesn't. Bring this up to a boil, it'll thicken up into a gravy-like consistency. We're gonna pour that over the pot roast, plate it up with some delicious mashed potatoes, and you got yourself the most comfort food meal of all time. All right, guys, we have our pot roast plated on top of some delicious mashed potatoes. with a nice silky smooth gravy, a little parsley on top for a pop of color. This is the part where I say brace yourself for a trademark money shot. Say it with me, guys, looking good. The only thing left to do is dig in for the taste test, but before we do that, please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hit that bell to enable notifications as well. All right, people, I got my fork and I'm ready to dig in. This is definitely on the Mount Rushmore of comfort food. Let me know in the comments what your Mount Rushmore of comfort food is. This is up there for me for sure. Look at that, just falling right apart. Smells amazing. Can't forget the carrot.